Hi, welcome everybody. If you are looking for closing the gap between seed and safety, shipping faster at scale, you're in the right place. So thank you for coming. It is 9 a.m. in Las Vegas, which is either noon if you're from the West Coast or 6 a.m. if you're on Vegas time. So thank you all very much for coming. I am Edith Harbaugh. I am CEO and co-founder of LaunchDarkly. And with me today, I have Jeffrey Goldberg of Click and Nate Gray of Alley. And do you want to give a brief intro of both of you and your roles before we get going?
Sure, I'll go first. Nate Gray, Ally Financial, Ally Bank. You might have seen the commercials. We're the largest digital bank in the country. I am over digital engineering operations, so primarily customer-facing applications and the APIs that interact with them.
And I'm Jeff Goldberg. I work at Click. We're a data integration, analytics, and AI software company, and I am a product manager responsible for a number of different areas in the platform, and I help our developers with tools, bringing in tools that help them with their productivity.
So I'm going to give a very brief overview of LaunchDarkly. This is not meant to be a vendor talk. It's meant to be them discussing software, but I want to give a little level set about what LaunchDarkly does. So I started LaunchDarkly in 2014 as the founder. And the reason why I started it is because I kept feeling the same pain over and over again as both an engineering manager and then as a product manager, which was that releases are hard. You know, back then we did a release once a quarter. And every time there was so much anxiety around, is it going to go out okay? You know, because back then build pipelines weren't really weird RDA. And then even beyond that, after you ship, is it going to fall over and go thud, basically? You know, the fingers crossed. I test a lot in a server that was in production. I tested a sandbox, but now it's in live in production. Is it actually going to work? And then work has a lot of different definitions. After you push it, is it actually delivering business value? You know, something could be working fine, but customers hate it. So from all that, I came up with the idea for LaunchDarkly, which is basically a runtime control plane for features, where you can launch, measure, and control features after, so you can launch them and then measure and control them. From that, over the last 10 years, we've continued to expand on what it means to be a feature management platform. So now LaunchDarkly allows you to release something, it allows you to observe it, and it allows you to iterate with it with our experimentation engine. And we do all this via a base of 20 plus SDKs. If you are using a language, we probably have it. And if we don't have an SDK for it, it is probably something like COBOL where we cannot physically do it. But anything else that you want, we have it. Set-top boxes, devices, we have an SDK for it. And the goal of all this is to de-risk every release. You know, as a former, as I said before, as a product manager and engineering manager, when something goes wrong, you feel it very viscerally, that something has gone wrong, it's bad in the field, and even more than that, that under stress that you have to fix it. So if something goes wrong, you have this panic feeling due to cortisol, and that is actually the worst time to make a decision. Some of the worst releases I've had happen is when something goes bad, and then there's this panic moment of what version do you roll back to, how do we roll it back, and suddenly you're trying to roll forward or roll back and cherry pick, and you somehow end up in a worse mess than before. So our goal is to de-risk every release by allowing you to do self-rollbacks at yield, and also to allow you some new features we've built over the last 10 years to allow you to accelerate AI development, because with this ability to do quick rollbacks and guarded releases, you can have a lot more confidence in what you're doing. As well, we can help you experiment after it is released. So if you have functionality that you want to see whether people like different AI models differently, you can test that out. And all this happily coincides very nicely with not just developer productivity, but developer happiness. This is a big goal of mine. You know, if you have confidence that things that you ship, if something goes wrong, you could quickly iterate on them, it's a lot easier to ship. If you have stress and anxiety about, oh, is this going to work, is this not going to work, that's when I think that development really slows down. Because then suddenly you have a lot of meetings or conference calls about how confident are we, which is its own operational drag. So that's a brief overview of LaunchDarkly. Now I'm really going to turn it over to a group discussion about the gap between speed and reliability. I'd say for a while this was seen as a false dichotomy in my mind, that you could either go fast in the Facebook model of ship everything, break everything, who cares? Or I'd say the slow and steady of let's ship once a quarter and really make sure it's right. And the reason why I feel like this was a false dichotomy is because if you have a quarterly release, it's actually more likely that something goes wrong. Because you have so many fixes, so many things working together, that it's much more likely that something will break with all this combination. I feel like if you ship more frequently with smaller units of value, it's a lot easier to isolate what's happening, and that it's actually much easier to get more reliable software. My joke is, so I used to be a big-time runner, and the joke is that, you go to the doctor and your knee hurts, and they say, well, if your knee hurts, stop running. If you're a software development company and your releases are always broken, you can't just stop shipping. It's not a valid answer to say, hey, we're never going to ship anymore because all our releases are terrible. The right answer is let's keep doing this until every release is easy and reliable. So I have a couple questions for panelists just to get started. And I will ask you both to answer this one. How do you feel like cadence has changed in your own orgs over the last 10 years? Like, how have you bridged this gap between speed and reliability?
I'll go first, sure. So we've moved from an on-premises product to the cloud, and I think that has been a key point of moving from those quarterly releases, or we were releasing software 5 times a year for an on-premises product, to now just continuous delivery of features, of bugs. And that really transformed the development organization. It really became something where the developers were really very happy because they were just constantly, they were feeling like they were able to achieve velocity. They were able to go ahead and just keep moving, keep progressing in different iterations of the software that they were delivering. It's interesting, though, that now we're 5 or 6 years into our cloud journey, and we have some desire to offer certain capabilities from a continuous perspective, but then there are other features that we want to hold back. But it's not necessarily because of any sort of engineering drag or anything like that. It's more about marketing and the integration of product marketing and thinking about how release is now more about moments, in addition to being able to push and ship more frequently. So it's coming up with that balance that we're working on right now.
Yeah, that's a pretty common pattern of sometimes there's a reason why customers don't want to see something right then. Like if you're doing a big promotion around Black Friday, you don't want to show it in August.
Right, exactly. And for us, we have large enterprise customers that will, what they like to do is they like to essentially preview features before they're released. They like to do things like build their own documentation. Even though we have documentation, they like to build their own enablement. So what we're beginning to offer in the new year is a way for customers to configure their tenants through just a toggling capability, a different release channel that they want to have their tenants release or receive different features. So items that would be on a monthly or a quarterly release will be determined by product management, product marketing, and the engineering team in collaboration with one another. And they'll go ahead and they'll set up the targeting rules to set that up. But if your tenant is set up for continuous, you'll actually get those features as they ship. And that gives the customer a lot more confidence because they can control how they distribute and allow their end users to consume these new capabilities with better support models from their side.
And are your developers happier now because they can decouple release from deployment?
I think that's still something that is where there's still some growth opportunity. I think we've been in a centralized model for release management for such a long time, because even though we moved to the cloud, we still maintain more of that on-premises mindset of release. But now we have close to 400 developers and engineers that have access to toggle feature flags in production. And so we've decentralized and given the development teams more control. They're gaining more confidence because they have that capability. They're more thoughtful about when flags get toggled, and so we've seen incidents go down, and that helps raise their confidence as well. Coming back to your point of, do we need to have these gates and these meetings to feel like we're confident? Now they have the wherewithal to have more control over that and take action if they see anything that doesn't look right immediately.
How about you?
Yeah, developer happiness has been a key driver of our tech modernization, actually. I wrote a blog post on the Ally Tech blog about how Ally got our nights and weekends back. We were doing the quarterly releases, then monthly releases, but they were always middle of the weekend, right? For a bank, if someone can't log in to check their account or transfer money or pay a bill, that's a really big deal. So like, we can't cause customer impact. But also, engineers can't work 45-hour weeks and nights and weekends. So what's the solution? LaunchDarkly was a big part of that through feature flags. So now we do. We went from I say monthly, but it was monthly releases plus a handful of hot fixes that obviously are always rushed out and ill-tested. To this year, we're averaging 68 releases a month across about 15 applications. We feature flag every UI change. We do API first development. So the API, we've separated APIs from UI deployments, separated releases from deployments. APIs go in for the UIs. We then target the new version of the API with phased rollouts. First, we do customer or employee pilot. So testing in production. Everyone says, don't test in production. No, please do test in production. That's the only way you can actually test what's happening in production, right? So create segments for our internal pilot team, then 1% rollout to customers, 5% rollout up to 100%, as long as all the metrics are tracking.
That's great. Like, what changes have you felt in your own team with getting their nights and weekends back?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a father of two boys that keep me very busy, and I preach work-life balance to my team. It's really important to me. I have the benefit of having leadership that agrees with that, and so we can ship at 5 p.m. as soon as the stock market closes, because we have the confidence that we know before we're going to break something. We can back out that pilot. Even if we do cause customer impact, it's not a 30-minute pipeline deployment. It's a 30-second, flag flip. So it's improved developer satisfaction tremendously.
What changes have you felt in your own team with the change in cadence?
I think from our developers, they really like that they have that flexibility. But I think one thing that you were just saying, the separation of deployment and release is really where they feel more comfort. I think that there was such a tight coupling before. Now there's this confidence that they can deploy, they can just continuously deploy, as long as they have they've set up their flags to basically deploy dark into those production environments, and then they're able to very granularly turn on, whether it's through a phased rollout or a release pipeline or using guarded rollouts. We just implemented guarded rollouts in the last couple of weeks, so we were just starting our enablement there. But in terms of the functionality of using different targeting rules, it's really interesting to see the maturity of the teams as they go through and they work through those things. They've really started to, I guess, enjoy being able to say, oh, I put it on this tenant, so I'm going to invite you to this tenant that I have internally so that you can go ahead and take a look at it. We have some announcements this week, and those we're doing some private previews. So we're working with, there's a collaboration between the development team and product management to establish different segments for those different previews that we will do throughout the journey to a generally available product. And it's just wonderful to know that we can keep delivering that software into production with aspects of it still turned off, because we can be super granular with how many flags we want to have, how we bring the flags together from a prerequisite perspective. And we also tie it in with access control too. So we, on the back end and the front end, so that we can make sure that when we do release, we're not only releasing just a UI change, but we're implementing the access control that goes along with it. And it's really looking at the full feature across multiple flags. And teams like that kind of granular control.
Where do you feel that there's still risk? Like, what are some non-negotiable guardrails? And this is for both of you.
For us, we're a highly regulated industry. Auditors and regulators are regularly checking that every GitLab production tag aligns to an approved CR with test evidence, and scans are all done appropriately. And so it's regulatory and compliance risk is a big one for us, making sure that we're doing everything by the book. And then, resiliency, being able to instantly know if you're causing trouble and flip that flag back.
In our world, we have two different pieces. We're FedRAMP compliant product, so we have to sometimes separate what is released in our commercial environment and stage that release before we're allowed to bring that into the federal environment for the purposes of audit. We have to go through audit processes and that sort of thing from a significant change perspective. So that's one non-negotiable piece, and we make sure that there's that separation of duties and that there's the people who can access the FedRAMP environment have a mechanism to turn on and set up the flags in the right way. And then I think one of the other things that we've been able to do because of our decentralization of the dev teams really owning their releases and owning their feature flags now is really being confident before you turn a flag on for all, right? Default true is not the way that you start working on a flag. You start with default false, and you protect yourself using the targeting rules as a guardrail. So those are some of the pretty, I guess, light non-negotiable pieces on our commercial side, because we've been so restrictive in the past that's actually caused more incidents than it's actually prevented.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how has being too cautious caused an incident? If you can.
Well, yeah, so again, it comes back to something I think I said a few minutes ago, where when we were in even as we started to decentralize, it was still kind of like this hybrid approach where we had a release champions team, right? And again, it's about having knowledge of your feature. And someone who's a release champion may not necessarily be in the same domain or org, but they're being asked through Slack, hey, can you flip this on in production for me? And they're just like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then all of a sudden it's like, support calls start coming in, errors start flowing through into Splunk, and everybody, you get all of a sudden you have 250 people jumping into an incident channel in Slack. Now that the ownership has fully shifted to the dev teams, they don't have to ask anyone for permission. They are in control. We treat our developers like adults and responsible people, and they care about that. They don't want incidents. They want they want to make sure that their code works properly in production. So this level of control just automatically solves the problem itself. It solves itself.
I definitely felt that, I got into engineering because I liked building things.
Yep.
And when we had, I'm old enough that we used to have like annual releases. That's just really painful, because you're working on something and sometimes by the time it's ready to ship, it's obsolete. But if you can release once a week or once a day, you get this little, kick of joy of, well, A, are people using it? And also, if they're not going to use it, I at least know that sooner.
Yep.
You know.
Well, this is the next phase for us, is really getting into, I was mentioning the private preview that we're doing for some of the new features that we have coming out soon, and getting into more experiments. So we've turned on all of that observability parts. We're engaging our design team to facilitate more experimentation through LaunchDarkly. We're building out capabilities that allow our customers to opt into betas and previews and different parts of our release model so that we can get feedback earlier, so that we can actually put something out there that I think you were saying it at the beginning of the call, where you think that the meta approach where you're throwing something out there and just let it break is bad. It's not that it's bad per se. It's a choice. It's how you control that decision. And that's the exciting part about using LaunchDarkly, is it gives you so many different opportunities to and control, not in a negative sense, but control in a positive sense, the feedback loops that you establish, whether they're customer driven, where the user's opting in, or they're experiments that we want to run, whether it's A/B testing or doing something where we allow our customers to operate in a canary mode or do blue-green deployment. That flexibility for our development teams and for our design teams and our product management teams just enables better quality outcomes for our customers. We will end up shipping lovable, like, not to use the company's name, but the lovable and features that our customers crave and they look forward to.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're all here for. Is I think is, it's fun to see, bits and bytes turn into real experiences.
Yep.
For sure.
Along with that, I have to ask, this 2025. How are you approaching AI and how it plays into your own release cycles and your own software development? And either of you can.
We treat models like features. So our enterprise AI team is we have a employee front end for like a chat GPT type experience that is 100% feature flags. And then for the AI configs, models are being treated like features and phase rollout and measured just like any other customer feature would be.
In our platform, where our customers are ingesting a lot of data into it and then either running that through transformation pipelines and analytics, and then we have the capability to build out assistants that you can deploy out into and embed into other ecosystems. What we need to be thoughtful about is how our customers want to treat that data and where they want that data to go. So being able to give them the opportunity to control the artificial intelligence capabilities of where they can pull data from is really important. So like, I'm not an AI expert, but Chris, cross-region inference, I think, is something that has become really important for our platform as our customers have data residency and sovereignty concerns. So we are offering a way for our customers to use different versions of our AI platform based on a toggle that they flip that calls a LaunchDarkly API, adds them to a segment, and then enables that feature, allows them to start using that cross-reference or cross-region technology so that they can enrich their AI products. And it's just that kind of integration is really great to provide to our customers as a way that they can control a certain set of features for those types of use cases. And that's how we're enabling AI capabilities alongside what you were saying, just from a feature functionality perspective.
And ironically, our head of AI was a LaunchDarkly user in his previous role that we acquired that company, and so he already came over asking for feature flags.
Which company was that?
It was. I knew you were going to ask that.
I felt like I should know it, and I don't.
Yeah, it was a point-of-sale lending company.
I think I know. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I guess I stated at the beginning that I feel like there isn't really a choice between speed and reliability. I guess to put it back to you two, do you feel like going faster has made your software more reliable, or what do you still struggle with or think about in your own processes?
There's still, going faster brings new complexities, new challenges, right? We broke our monolith APIs into microservices. We broke our web architecture into a micro front end. And so there's a lot more moving pieces, but they can all be independently deployable. So giving that freedom we have a rule that essentially everything, every application, every deployment has to be independently deployable. And so that's how we've managed that new complexity that came with moving faster, is getting rid of dependencies everywhere we can.
That's smart. Was it hard to go through that process?
There were certainly some learning, some lessons learned throughout the way. I'm not going to lie and say we didn't take down production once or twice, but I think everybody here probably has done that.
For us, the reliability piece is really important because of, again, just the feeds and speeds of the data and the way that our customers use data to take decisions every day. So what we've been trying to do, again, to help the developers have a greater level of control, is using context and making sure that the full product set is context aware of the user or of the tenant or specific services that are in place. So one of the things that we've implemented when we see a degradation of a particular service from a reliability perspective is we've created a string-based feature flag that our SRE team can go in and toggle a debug mode for a specific tenant. And so now they can identify, the support will identify a customer that's having an issue. They'll supply the tenant ID. The SRE will go in, or the dev team will go in. They'll add the targeting to that specific tenant, turn on debug mode, and now that will change the logs that come into Splunk so that they can actually do more of a forensic analysis of what's actually happening across the services that they're using. So,
but only for that customer.
But only for that customer,
That's
only for that tenant. So like we have OEM products, so we have customers that have thousands of tenants in production as end customers of their SaaS solution are embedding analytics. So being able to trace that and have that level of control, that drives reliability. So I kind of feel like your question about speed and reliability, yes, they kind of go hand in hand, but what we've been able to do is actually decouple it, right? We use the platform to drive those use cases separately. Reliability in terms of like the shipping faster just comes from what we've been talking about relative to the access and the control that the developers have of their features. But this piece really helps us shortcut any sort of like real digging into any code to really understand what a problem is, because we can just turn that on and turn that off as needed to identify problems. And that reliability is really great. And then what we can do is, again, through segments, is we can control regionally what things are happening. So if it's isolated to a specific region, because even though you're in production, we're in 15 different regions, ghosts in the machine, they happen. You can basically set things up so that as you're fixing problems, you can isolate down. And that's where the context piece really, really helps and shines with reliability.
Yeah, so LaunchDarkly is actually a big customer of LaunchDarkly. So we serve trillions of features every day. And we do a lot of interesting stuff. People think of us as just serving features to users. A user can be a machine. Like a user can be an API. So we can really dive in, and if we're getting session calls that are not good, we can block an IP, block an API, and do that very quickly.
Yes, yeah, and I think to log roll a little bit on the LaunchDarkly part, I see that not only from that ability to isolate because of context, but that also percolates into just the usability features from an administration perspective. So as effectively the product owner for LaunchDarkly, I take a look at like authorization and how roles and teams are set up. And what I love is the granular way that we can scope machine tokens or users, and they're actually born from the same access control model. And that is, especially with what we're doing in the release cadence and with the Chris toggle that I mentioned, we have basically just, instead of having an API token that can basically do a whole bunch of things, it literally can touch those two segments. It can write to those two segments, and that's it. That level of granularity and control is just, it's fantastic.
Yeah, we have a lot of people who use us for device management. For example, if you know that it's not going to work on this version of Android, just block it.
Yeah.
Don't have a bad user experience.
Yeah. It's very cool.
What are you thinking about in terms of where you want your release processes to go? I mean, it seems like you both are pretty forward-looking. Is there things that are still on your roadmap, or do you feel like you are in a good steady state?
Yeah, automation. I don't know what automation really looks like, right? I mean, I know we want it. I know the more automation, the better. I know that the automation we've put in has made significant improvements. But in a regulated industry, I don't know that we'll ever get to one button full automation. There's got to be some human in the loop along the way. But automating as much of the pipeline as possible, automating testing. The difficult part for us with production validations is when you're validating in production, it's a real bank account. Our developers are logging in on release calls to their personal accounts and moving money and purchasing shares. And that's really the only way we can do it. There's a team that was supporting auto payments that for a time they didn't have anyone on the team that had an auto loan through Ally, so they would have to ask for volunteers to come validate. So production validations have always been a challenge. Anything we can do to automate that, that's where we want to go.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I bank like anybody else. I want the number to be right.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, automation, I completely agree with what you're saying. The ability for our developers to be able to, and this is where I see like guarded rollouts and some of the other capabilities coming into play, that automation and then allowing our customers to choose in certain cases so that our developers are focused on shipping features, not necessarily getting calls to say, hey, can you toggle this on for this particular tenant? They want to try this out, right? Because we're in the middle of an engagement or something like that. So being able to support those types of use cases is huge, and that's where the automation comes in, the tighter integration with the product set, and then just giving the developers the opportunity to work through the experimentation processes and have that trigger different workflows either inside or outside of LaunchDarkly, I think is another way for them to accelerate their workflow from a development perspective.
Yeah, a big change I myself have seen over the next 10 years is just the acceptance that automation is good. So when I started the company 10 years ago, when I talked to prospects about, hey, you can move stuff through stages, like the examples you gave.
Yep.
And I would ask, do you want to have this automated? They would say, absolutely not. Somebody needs to flip that switch. I need somebody to flip it. But what's changed, I think, and I think AI has accelerated, is people are like, actually, a machine could flip it faster than a human. And in fact, I do not want to wait for a human. Like, we have a customer that does payment processing. They're like, if something's going wrong, I want to stop it within a second. Like, I don't want to wait for somebody to get paged 5 minutes. Like, I want a second, and then the person get paged, they can figure out why it went wrong, but I don't want that delay.
I think you're absolutely right. Like, I can't presume what developers want, but as someone who's always aspired to be a developer, I really embrace automation, because if I can not have to worry about that kind of concern and I can continue to focus on building, that's the part of the job that I really enjoy. So to be able to automate that, either get an alert or what have you, or have it automatically roll back, is just like, that's great, because I don't have to. I'm going to say context in two different ways. I don't have to context switch from being in builder mode to being in fix-it mode, right? But then what you're mentioning from an AI perspective, which is so important, is that it's all about context. That is what, if you give your agents, you give your AI the context of what you want, you provide it the instructions on how to behave when you see certain conditions, it will go ahead and handle that for you, and that you can provide that in a natural language way versus like dragging and dropping blocks, I think is what makes it way more approachable for a developer now than it did maybe, even three to 5 years ago, where it was like, oh, use Workato. Like, sorry, Workato, folks. It's a great tool. But, where you're dragging and dropping blocks. I mean, we have that capability in our platform with like Click Automate. But our customers want to be able to just, be like Scotty in Star Trek 4 and say, hello, computer, and out comes transparent aluminum.
Anything to add?
So we've shifted left on security scanning, which has prevented a lot of last-minute fire drills. Implementing security gating at the point of that first merge request means we're not waiting on a weekly scan to come in right before the release sign-offs. The developers have much more control over the timing of those releases, and then by having everything independently releasable and feature flaggable, if something comes up, that component just doesn't go that release, and so we don't have to back out code at any point in the process. We just decide not to flip that feature or deploy that microservice.
Hearing you talk about that again makes me remember the way we used to develop a decade ago, and I don't want to go back.
No, no. Actually, the first time we used a feature flag from LaunchDarkly, it was the second week of COVID, and the feature that we'd been working on for a month or so was an annual employment verification for customers. That certain products require annual employment verification. Well, when half the world was being laid off and fired, that's probably not the best time to ask for employment verification. So But we had this big release. This was before we had, this is at the beginning of our modernization journey, but we had introduced feature flags. And that one happened to be the first one, and we just toggled it off. And everything else was able to release. We didn't have to break up the release package. We didn't have to, we did some retesting because we didn't know what we didn't know from this new tool. But it worked flawlessly, and then we were able to delay that employment verification for 3 months and just toggle it on when we were ready.
Yeah, that's the origin of our name. That's a classic dark launch.
Right. Yeah.
Where you can ship out features dark, and then to your metaphor, default false, and then slowly turn them on.
Yeah. Almost 100% of our UI releases are now deployed dark. Validated by just the development teams and product teams in production. For mobile, it's a little differently. It's a little different because you have to release new binaries, push those releases out to customers, and we get negative customer feedback when we release too fast in mobile. People don't want to download a new app every time they use it. Especially, if you're trying to check your bank account and you don't have great service, you might not be able to do that because you can't wait 20 minutes to download a new app. And so by being able to feature flag web and mobile features together, we can release web as often as we want, as often as developers need to. Mobile goes in a slower cadence. We're about bi-weekly now. And then once all the pilot testing is done on each, then we can flip both of those features on together so that customers, regardless of platform they're on, see that same feature at the same time.
That's part of the origin story of LaunchDarkly. Is I was at TripIt, which is a mobile app, and we had that exact use case of somebody is on the road, perhaps to Vegas, and they're desperately trying to look at something on their phone. Now is not the time.
Yep.
To ask you to update your app.
That's right.
And also we learned the hard way that some stuff that looked great in a mock-up internally in our user testing, when somebody is running through an airport, they hate it. They're like, I don't have time to look at your beautiful UI. Just make the buttons louder, and prettier is not an option, just louder.
Yep.
Well, before we turn it over to the audience, any final advice for people on their own journeys? Like you said, you had some of your own lessons learned, but as people are looking to ship faster with more reliability at the same time, what advice would you give them?
My advice is bring your developers to the product. Don't restrict their access to it. I think that's a key lesson that we've learned. And provide them opportunities to explore the paths that they want to take to release their products, right? The platform itself provides numerous different ways to go to market. And what I see my responsibility from a product perspective is to highlight what the different features within feature flagging can bring to bear and show them different use cases that they could employ when they choose to go ahead and release. And that's how we will expand the maturity and expand the confidence that our developers will have to use the full range and capabilities of the product so that they can release more reliably. They'll get more hands-on experience with it, and that's what will help drive the speed.
Yeah, developer autonomy, I was going to say that as well. That's when we went through our tech modernization initiative, I laid out release management guiding principles, and I did a roadshow to all of the leadership stakeholders, making sure that everyone's on board with this. And number one on that was development teams should have the autonomy to move at their own speed. Our release process is like a bus schedule. Like, you don't have to get on every bus, right? You're going to have you have scheduled options, you have ad hoc options, and it's up to like the release team is supporting those product teams to get it out to customers, balancing that speed and safety, balancing customer service, our customers being the product teams we support, and our risk management hats as release management. So giving development teams the autonomy to move at their own speed while putting the right checks in place, right? By putting the right gates in place, the right tooling. We do. You said that they have developers are actually releasing their features themselves. We have LaunchDarkly has an approval flow built in if you choose to use it, and we use that. So the developer builds the flag, submits the request, and then the release team submits the change request, gets that approved, reviews and approves the change request within LaunchDarkly, and then pushes it out.
Well, I want to conclude by saying I know LaunchDarkly is a vendor, but a lot of the techniques that we talked about today you can use without LaunchDarkly. So I hope you learned a lot about how you can improve your own development processes, and even if you're not using LaunchDarkly, make your developer lives happier and reduce risk. I would like to now open it up to questions from anybody. We don't have a runner for the mic, so you'll have to speak loudly. And I will ask the person in front, because you sat in front.
So my question is, how does that tie into like versioning? So if you're doing, let's say, doing dark releases, when do you actually update if you do semantic versioning, when would you update the release number or the tag version of your product?
So we do it. We actually don't use. I'm sure Edith doesn't want me saying this. We don't use feature flags for our APIs yet. So the UI targets the new API version. So we'll deploy a new API version that sits in parallel in production. Nobody's calling that yet. And then one by one, those consumers will repoint via a feature flag and phase rollout over to the new version. Does that answer your question?
I think so. I mainly work with the platform, so I provide pipelines for teams to be able to push their applications. So we increment our versioning every 3 weeks we push out changes. But it'd be nice to be able to push out releases or deploy items without teams having to necessarily go to always keep updating their versioning and have that constant tech debt.
So what we're looking into, we haven't done this yet, but as we're separating deployment from release, what we are looking at is how not only would you do a blue-green deployment, but also like a blue-green release, where you are tying the feature flagging to that version so that you can go ahead and actually phase rollout from that perspective. The other way that we do it, the way that we do it today is we do, I mentioned we have a lot of different regions, so what we've done is created segments that have regions of different profiles in what we call zones. And as part of our release pipeline, we'll release to zones, we'll evaluate, make sure that things are working properly, and then the teams will go ahead and continue to move those new versions or turn those new versions of the software on in release. So it's really trying to provide that one part that is handshake. We're again early days there, but there's the functionality to support it. And our customers are also looking for it, like I mentioned earlier, with respect to just the release cadence piece, where some of our customers want to have a tenant that's canary, that's basically getting like nightly updates. So we're going to try to figure out how we can provide that so that their tenants can run in a canary mode.
There's a couple other techniques, but we can take that for after. You were just because you were persistent. You right there. Just talk loud.
Yeah, okay. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Edith, I'm really sorry for this question, but why should I not build my own LaunchDarkly using AI? And like,
I love that question.
Sorry?
I love the question. Don't apologize.
Yeah, okay. So there are two parts what I always look for. One is like open source tools which will do the things for which I'm paying. Or if the open source versions are not available, why can't I just give Claude or any of these tools like instructions to build what I want, and it will be specific to my deployment and my release. So why should I not build it, and why should I look at LaunchDarkly?
That's a great question. And number one, the reason why I started the company is because I think just using feature flags is a better way to use software. So I'll say if you have simple use cases, 100% just build it in-house. Like if you're just like, hey, I just need some simple on-offs. I have some very simple release processes where I have a beta group and a non-beta group. You probably could do that yourself. I think if you have a more complex situation, like the ones that you just described.
So we had our own, we did purchase LaunchDarkly, I think, back in 2020, but we were using our own feature flag management service because we had, 15 services. We're now 300 services and growing, right? We're adding new services every week. And so it's just not a concern we want our developers to have. So I think to your point, right, it all depends on, you reach a certain size and scale where you need to offload that concern, and where all a developer has to do is add a few lines of code to do an evaluation, and then all the aspects of being able to have a finer grained control just works for our teams so that they don't have to worry about that piece.
I know, Nate, you're in a regulated industry, so you might have something to add about why not just have AI build it.
Yeah, well, we haven't looked at specifically that question, using AI to build it. But I was actually hanging out with guys from Flickr last night, and they claim that they created the first feature flag.
Skill?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And but they're also LaunchDarkly customers. So like.
That's how I know.
Yeah. So I said, well, clearly, like, so they said we invented feature flags, and now we're paying for this service. Why? Because they do it better.
I don't claim that we invented feature flags, by the way. Just let's say that we make it easier.
Yeah.
I just have a follow-up on that, if that's okay. So when you're saying that, so my problem there is that I don't want to be vendor locked in. And then, like, I would want to build things which are only specific to my deployment. Although I understand she would have, like, her company would have much more expertise in that area, but we would know much more about our stack. So, how do you measure that when is it good to go to a vendor, and when is it good to build it on your own?
I think that's a broader question than LaunchDarkly. We're at AWS, where I hope most people have chosen a cloud vendor. If you really want to build something yourself, that's your decision.
Yeah, I would say if you're a small dev team, everyone's using the same languages and platforms, maybe it makes more sense to build something in-house. We have hundreds of dev teams using different languages, different platforms, different frameworks, and we would need an entire platform team to support feature flagging, which would be probably more than, I'm sure it would be more than what we're paying LaunchDarkly.
Somebody over there had a question, I think.
So my question is trying to understand how this works in your company. By the way, I'm a very big fan of feature flagging. So you mentioned, Nate, that your company moved from 1 release a month to 68 releases, and my team moved from 1 release a month to about 120 releases. We just, we say, just keep on shipping. One of the problems that we get into is the flags, they get overwhelming. And now the problems that we have is we don't use LaunchDarkly currently. We use an open source software, but there are overwhelming number of flags, and no one knows how to, which one to remove, which one to keep. Is there kind of a governance that you have in your teams?
Yeah, and they solve for that within the platform. I should also say, we're not paid to be here. Maybe it sounds like we're just fanboys. Like that, we're huge fanboys.
Actually, they pay us because they're customers.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And so within the console, they have a stale flag module where you can go any flag that hasn't been called in 3 weeks or something like that. You can set your parameters, but there's specific definitions for stale flags. There's a dashboard where dev teams can do that either every sprint, review their stale flags, do that every third sprint, build it into their workflow so that they're just reviewing what flags are no longer getting called so they can clean up that tech debt along the way.
Yeah. For us, it's a combination of the code references capability that's in LaunchDarkly. So you add a GitHub action that basically has LaunchDarkly scan for feature flags inside of the repo, and then it reports that into the projects inside of LaunchDarkly. So you can go into a specific feature flag, and if you have got a flag that's actually operating across multiple repos, you'll be able to see the repos that it's used in, and then you're able to define how many lines of code you want to show inside of LaunchDarkly where the feature flag is to determine whether or not it's actually something that's safe to remove. And then, like you're saying, there's a number of different affordances within LaunchDarkly. There's some default rules that exist that look at flag evaluations, time that the flag has been existing, and it will start to indicate, oh, this is ready for code. This flag is ready for code removal. Oh, you've removed it from all of the code, so now it's ready to archive. And those affordances, we take that and then we provide that information to the team so that they can go ahead and build into their sprint plans any sort of flag cleanup operations that they need to make sure that they take care of to maintain hygiene.
Yeah, we actually just released a hygiene agent at GitHub Universe that will help analyze that more automatically.
Oh, I need to look at that. I love it.
Yeah. And it came from, again, as being around for over a decade, is, I used to see, if you used to search for feature flags, the number one hit was an article not written by me that said, feature flags are the worst kind of technical debt. And it was people who were using some sort of homegrown solution, and they just were accumulating so much crud.
Yep.
Of stale, broken flags that nobody knew what to do anymore. And it's like, feature flags are the worst kind of technical debt if you're not managing them.
Yep. We've found a couple of use cases for permanent feature flags, though, let's say a key vendor goes down and we have an outage in our website. We have flags that can send up a coach mark to say, I'm sorry, we're experiencing technical difficulties right now. And so that flag's just always out there, and we just flip it on when we need to. But for the most part, you're going to want to clean up flags once they're no longer being evaluated on a regular basis.
Yeah, we have some customers who, if they're getting floods of traffic, either from a denial of service attack or just something that could just put up a graceful failure, mm-hmm. which is much better than the entire site just collapsing.
Yep.
I think we have time for one more question, if there's anybody.
Hi. Sorry. So my question was already asked, so I have a different one now. About the reliability of feature flags. So the biggest concern that comes up when thinking about LaunchDarkly and discussing with the management is not necessarily the cost, because you can still explain the cost benefits, but the reliability on something which is served from an external third-party server to look at and say that, okay, if this goes down, then this was the last guardrail that we had before everything is displayed to the customer.
Yeah, maintaining flag defaults is a big part of that. And we're at the AWS conference. Last time we saw this was the US East outage, where there were two teams who had not set their defaults correctly, and they went down. LaunchDarkly had some they were in US East 1. They had some lessons learned out of that, but the people who had maintained their defaults, even when AWS was down, even when LaunchDarkly was down, it worked flawlessly.
It's a great question, and similar to that situation, where LaunchDarkly helps is having different services like the relay service. So the relay service acts as almost like a middleware to go back to central, but at least it's caching a set of all the flag variations. So our tenants are actually talking to that first before they go back to LaunchDarkly Central. Any changes that are coming from Central are basically being brought down to that relay. And then I think some of the other protection mechanisms that certainly helped us in that experience was that when our users are working with our platform, there's local storage that's being used where there's flag caching that happens naturally. So the reliability from a user experience perspective is just, from my perspective, is something that is easily mitigated by these different mechanisms that LaunchDarkly has in place, or with a small sidecar that you install in your environment, that you can prevent those kinds of, or at least you can, for a short period of time, you have some protection from that.
Well, thank you very much to Nate and Jeffrey. This wasn't meant to be a vendor talk, but thank you for describing the product so well. I appreciate it. Can we give, first, if you have more questions, we do have a booth on the floor if you want to visit it. And can we please give our panelists a big hand?